You're listening to the New World to Go podcast with your hosts, Redbyrd and BDLG.
Hello and welcome to another episode of New World to Go podcast. I am your host, Redbyrd, and with me is BDLG. I have no idea what I said different there, but something tripped me up, dude.
Oh, but dude, this might be a long night right now, man. You may have a long night editing after we record this thing.
Bro, it's staying in.
Okay.
Mark, everybody, you heard it. You heard it just like we heard it, boys.
I just mean moving forward. You know, if you're setting the precedence for the podcast tonight, dude, this might be a long one.
Nah, dude. Nope. I refuse. Okay. I refuse to edit. So
all right.
Stay on point, dude. How are you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm good, man. I'm hanging in there, dude. It's been a long weekend. Wife and kids haven't been feeling well, so I've been taking care of them. But other than that, man, I'm good. You know, I still feel healthy, feel good. I'm ready to record the podcast, dude. Ready to go. How about you, man?
I'm doing great. I was sick, and I'm better now. So thank the Lord for that. It was a rough little couple days there. I got tested for the thing, and I don't have the thing, so that's really good.
Yeah, that's good news.
Yeah, so, all right, dude. So we got a little bit of an interesting show, something we don't usually do. We usually leave this to other people. We're going to talk a little bit about the backstory of the game, some lore, the different characters that we know about from the preview event, and what we might expect from an actual storyline as they continue to work out this game and kind of work out what we are going to see as a launch product. But first, Bordy, let's talk about StudioLoot.com. Don't forget to contact us there. We have the contact button over there. So go over there. You can email us or message us with questions on the podcast. Obviously, positive feedback, negative feedback, whatever you want to leave over there. Go to StudioLoot.com. We have a contact button, or you can join the Discord, and we talk to people all day long in the Discord. So if you want to chat with us there, do that as well. We're going to start featuring your guys' questions on the podcast. So if you have something that you want us to cover, a question for me and Bordy, or just again, a good old high five, digital one, go over to newworld.com and hit the contact button. Also, starting next week, we are going to start featuring the guilds on New World Fans, our website. So if you want to have your guild featured on the podcast, don't forget to sign up over there, create a promotion for your guild, and you may be featured on next week's episode, starting next week. I said that already, but I want to specify that so people know that get your stuff in now.
Oh, boy. I also want to add the Twitter. You can also reach out on Twitter for any questions, comments, etc. It's the Studio Loot Twitter, twitter.com/Studio Loot, all one word.
Yes, there is a New World to Go podcast one, but that's only to redirect you to our actual active Twitter account, which is the Studio Loot account. Again, it's just me, Bordy, and Taken, just your friends, just your good old buddies, pals, but it is under the one Twitter account, the Studio Loot It's just Studio Loot, the Twitter is. But follow that. You're going to get lots of cool memes, dad jokes, the works, man. Follow Studio Loot's Twitter account. All right. So, Bordy, New World, and this is something that me and you have kind of talked about a little bit, but not went into depth on. You made a cool little YouTube video about it. If you haven't checked out Bordy's YouTube video, go check his YouTube channel, BDLG, or the BDLG, right, on YouTube.
Yeah. Yep.
And there he has a cool little lore video talking out the intro or the first parts of the game, which is pretty dope, man. It's like the coolest thing you've probably ever done, which isn't saying a lot, but
thanks, man. I'll take a compliment any way I can get it, man. That I put a lot of work into that video.
It was good, man. I thought it was good.
Thanks.
So tonight we're going to talk about the story, the intro. They've even added more to the intro since you made that video, I think, with the Captain Thorpe and your character sitting down in the pub or whatever.
Yeah,
and kind of opening up that corrupted box. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Captain Thorpe, obviously, Isabella, the lady the corrupted eye lady is how I refer to her as, from the original cinematic trailer. And then we're going to talk about the time period that the game set in and what they could use how they could use that as far as lore and backstory. The Ancients, which is another big thing they didn't really touch very well, or I don't feel like they went into a lot of depth in the preview event at least. They're going to play a big part, or we hope they're going to play a big part in the New World story. And then Azoth and Corruption, which you can kind of see a lot in the cinematic trailer, but we don't know a lot about that relationship as far as like how it could affect players. So first, Bordy, and I'll let you start talking soon. The intro movie, Bordy. So, I'm going to let you made a video about this, and I want you to kind of specify here. What do you think is going on? It seems like it's setting your character up as like an explorer, and you've kind of discovered this new, obviously, box that is going to send you on this adventure to this place called Eternum. So, Bordy, why don't you kind of dive in a little bit here about what you think that video obviously is displaying, which is pretty on the nose, I guess, and what you think that might kind of, or how New World might use that to kind of start up the storyline of the actual game.
Yeah, so I mean, for those that don't know, New World is based around a substance called Azoth that runs underneath the island. So that is what draws people to the island in the first place. That's why you have people coming to Eternum at all, is to find this substance called Azoth. It's a very powerful substance that changes you into either a good or an evil person, and so on and so forth. So at the very beginning in the cinematic trailer there, you see them pulling the Isabella's amulet. It's what that is. Whenever they go and they pull the amulet out of the statue there, they pull Isabella's amulet out, and it's an Azoth imbued amulet. And so then they turn into some corrupted people, and then it kind of goes on. And then later on at the very end of the trailer, you see Isabella standing up on the mountain, just kind of looking down at the battle. That is so dope, man, and sets the tone for what we would think would be some pretty amazing lore and a pretty amazing story going in there. And then we really never seen Isabella again during the preview, right? Like I didn't. I don't know. It doesn't. She never ties in there, right? Like there's no story or anything. So I'm hoping that at some point they move more towards that direction. I'm not a huge lore guy. I don't like really going through quests, and I enjoy. Okay, let me take that back. I enjoy going through quests and listening to the story. I don't really dive too deep into the lore typically. But if it's a very intriguing story, I will. And I hope that they do, because there are a lot of people that really, really, really love the lore. And I think they're lacking very significantly in that department right now. They have that really dope trailer, and then they just leave you hanging. And I don't know where Isabella is or how she plays into the story after the intro trailer.
Yeah, and I don't either. Captain Thorpe is another big guy. He's the guy that he sits down with you in the pub. He shows you the corrupted box. The map to Eternum, obviously, and then you fight him several times throughout the game. You fight him, obviously, through the tutorial, when you learn how to do corrupted breaches, or when you're trying to get Corruption's Bane, the staff that allows you to close the portals. You'll fight him again, and then at the very end, he is one of the like open world bosses in one of the corrupted zones, or the little corrupted territories. So he seems to be like a pretty big. Pretty big part of the story of that kind of helps the story move along. But even him, is kind of like his story and who he is to you and all that stuff is very underplayed. Like there isn't, you think as many times as you fight him in the game, you would have a great idea of like why he is corrupted, or why, he fell to the corruption versus, Azoth being brought back. And that, like you made that point where that, a lot of the story is built up between that relationship between Azoth and Corruption. We're going to go into that later. But as far as what we know and characters that we know, we only know two people, Captain Thorpe and Isabella, and both of them are corrupted. So it's like, obviously the players are all like able to be imbued and empowered by Azoth with our abilities and stuff like that. But those two are the only other characters that have names in the game, and they seem to be corrupted people. So, did you get a chance to fight corrupted Thorpe every time, or like each of his different interactions in the open world?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I fought him every time, and it never really explains a whole lot about it other than the intro. Unless I missed something, there may be little lore books. There are lore things hidden around Eternum that you can pick up and you can read, but even those, I read some of those, and even those don't feel like they tie into the main story. They're all very individualistic to a certain scenario or a certain story, or so it seems. The ones that I read seemed that way, and I never really did get like a big picture of lore. So I don't know. I think you're right on whenever you say it doesn't do a good job of letting you know like how you're tied into Thorpe and why you're fighting him so much. And I really hope they tie the story into that more, because I want to lean into that. I really enjoy, if I'm fighting a boss, especially something as significant as Captain Thorpe, somebody you see that many times and somebody you see in the intro, I want to know why. Like, why am I killing this guy? Like, how does he tie into me and the whole story? Like, what are we doing? And that makes the game a whole lot more fun whenever you know why you're doing that, right?
Yeah, and it's challenging too, because there isn't a lot of like, there's no voice acting or anything really in the game. There's not a whole lot of like when you're doing quests or anything, I don't like to read. That should be like pretty much documented through all of our podcasting and everything like that. I don't like, you know what I mean? I like voice acting. I feel like it's 2020. Most AAA MMOs should have like most of the text and interaction with NPCs to be voice acted. I think it adds to the environment when you hear like, obviously like, NPCs like yelling in the background and stuff like that. I think that adds so much to the game, and a lot of the questing in New World, or what we've seen so far, is just fetch quests. So there is no really reason to have a story progress through those fetch quests when you're doing like your faction quests and everything like that. So there isn't a lot of story past just seeing Captain Thorpe 3 other times. And so tonight we definitely want to go into what we hope to see, because I don't think they're going to leave it at that. Really, I think they're going to, Isabella needs to be tied in for sure. Like they've already kind of made her as like a main antagonist throughout or by the cinematic trailer and everything. And I think there are some other pages out there in the world, like you had mentioned, that mention her and her role with the corrupted forces and everything like that. So we're going to talk a little bit about what we think, or where we think or hope the game is going to go towards. Now, one of the most important things, Bordy, and you kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier about, how I think the game could have a really, really cool and interesting lore, is the time period. This is something that's very unique to New World. Most MMOs set themselves into high fantasy, like medieval type stuff. New World is like 1700s, like Age of the Explorer, exploration, when people were looking for like the Fountain of Youth and all of those type of things. And New World kind of puts itself in like an alternative 1700 universe. So Bordy, just off of that thought, and obviously your character being an explorer, what are some ways that you think they can tie this in? Because Azoth and the Fountain of Youth really kind of go hand in hand here, doesn't it? I feel like there's a lot of different ways that those two tie each other together that kind of add to the ancients and everything else we're going to talk about tonight.
Yeah, I think so, man. I think they could use that in a whole lot of different ways. But in terms of like time period and civilizations, I would like to see them lean it. There's so many things they could do. They could mesh them all together if they wanted to, because literally Eternum is like is undiscovered. It's this mystical, magical world out here by itself that nobody knows anything about. So they could mesh all kinds of history together within this island, which would be awesome. I would love to see like some sort of mixture between some Roman influence, like you had said, and then even like some Viking stuff would be so dope to me. I think that we have seen like kind of a Viking ship before with is it like the Vikings have like a dragon head on the end of their ship or something like that? Yeah, we've seen one of those in one of the videos that they released early on. So it seems like they have some things planned to go in that direction, but as of right now, or as of the preview, there was nothing in there. So what are some ways they could tie some of these people in, Red? Like how could they tie in like Captain Thorpe, Isabella with the new Vikings and whatever? Do you think that they'll go down the line of like still just finding these pages within the world, or do you think they'll go more of the traditional like questing and voice acted quest route? Do you think they'll have voice acted quests at all? That's a lot of questions in one question, but
yeah. So first, let's do this. Eternum is like an island that it seems to be lost in like the Bermuda Triangle or some. It's isolated. You can't get off of it once you get there, obviously, or it seems to be that way. That a lot of the people that go to Eternum end up dead, or stuck there, right? So, you mentioned the Vikings and a lot of these other time periods, and I think that what makes, what makes the lore interesting is that, you have all these time periods throughout history past the 1700s, obviously backwards, that you can explore, like the Vikings, or, you see a lot of Roman Empire influence and Egyptian influence and all those things. That could go on and on and on, because Eternum seems to be one of these places that we'd kind of hinted at, is kind of like keeping people alive, or Azoth has the power to help you live forever and to become powerful. And the ancients seem to be like this, in a bad way, like corrupted, but still living forever. And you have a lot of that, like with the Lost and everything too. And so this island possesses this unique power that you go there to try to explore and figure out what it's all about. Obviously, kind of, again, that period of history where people were looking for the fountain of youth. They believed there was some way to live forever, and it's just that I would like to see them explore more on that. To your other questions, I do think they need voice acted questing. I think they need a storyline, because a lot of the MMO community, they really like or get attached to like the backline, or like the backstory and lore, and why am I doing this? Why am I going out and trying to fight the corrupted and close these portals? Why am I fighting back these breaches and invasions? Why am I, you know what I mean? If you don't have some sort of story that ties all those things together, then playing the game doesn't feel as like purposeful, is the word I would say. All these activities you're participating in just feel kind of like, just like those PvP quests or PvE quests that we did like 100 times throughout the preview event. They kind of feel like, they start to feel mundane, and then at some point you're just like, I would rather do anything else other than these. So I would definitely like them to add a quest line with tying into Captain Thorpe and Isabella and all the corrupted stuff, to try to give us a purpose on why we continue to, go out and fight back all of this the corrupted presence on Eternum.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. I think that the lore pages and the lore books are awesome. I love finding those things out in the world. But I do think that they should have a main quest. They do have a main quest, but a little bit better fleshed out, that explains who these characters are and why we're doing these things, along with having lore books. I think the lore pages should be supplemental to what we get in the main story and I do agree, like voice acted stuff is amazing, and I don't know if they're going to go that direction or not, but I would like for them to. That'd be awesome. And I'm not like a huge questing guy, but I do like to have some sense of purpose whenever I go out into the world and I start fighting these things, especially in something like Eternum, where there's all kinds of corruption you're fighting off. Like, why I understand why, because it's Azoth and they are corrupted by the Azoth. I get that, but what we don't know is who gets corrupted by the Azoth, who doesn't, and why those people are corrupted and why some people aren't, and what types of powers people get and other people don't. And it's just, there's a lot of unknowns there, and maybe that's how it's supposed to be until we learn more. But I think they need to do a better job of leading, at least if they're going to leave us hanging like that, and that's how it's supposed to be, do a better job of leading up to that point, so that we have like a cliffhanger to look forward to, like a new expansion or something like that, to understand what's going on with the story.
Exactly. And one of the things that we have on the list to talk about are the ancients. They're supposedly able to harness the power of Azoth and make these massive technological advancements in society, or just in the capability of on Eternum, of these we see all these towering monuments that they've built up and kind of maintained over time, and here are the ancients, like these skeletons that continue to live forever and ever, seem to be enchanted with the power of Azoth, or something that's keeping them alive. So Bordy, this reminds me a lot of like Dwemer and Elder Scrolls lore, or something along that nature, where it's like this lost society that we don't know a whole lot about, but they tend to hold like a lot of secrets into the power of Azoth and what its uses are. So Bordy, I know this is one of the things you were excited to talk about. What are your thoughts on ancients and how they can tie those into the storyline?
Well, man, those are ancients are so intriguing in terms of lore because they've said in some of their developer diaries and developer blogs that the ancients have this incredible history being on Eternum, and they've been there forever. And they once were this ancient civilization that lived there, and they harnessed the power of Azoth to make all of this incredible technology. And the players are going to be able to explore these ruins of the ancients and the temples of the ancients and go around and find these secrets and uncover these special things and learn about the lore. I didn't see any of that in the preview event, man. I did see some pretty cool, like, circular things that are in the ground. Did you see those big sphere things that were in the ground?
Yeah.
Different play, the huge things, and it looked like they could open up. There were some lore books that kind of tied into that, some lore pages that kind of tied into that and explained those a little bit, but didn't really go into depth a whole lot about what those were, or why, or if they're ever, are they going to open up at some point? Like, that would be so dope to have some kind of server event where those things opened up at some point because the ancients triggered some technology, or some person went in there and triggered something and it opened them up, or well, I don't know, just little things like that. And then tie in the ancients into Captain Thorpe and Isabella. Maybe Captain Thorpe was an ancient back in the day, and then he got empowered by the Azoth and used some kind of ancient technology to make him the most powerful captain. And then Isabella was his wife, and then they had I don't know, something, tie it in somehow. But the ancients are very intriguing because there are some really cool places in the game right now, like the temples and all the things they have with the ancients, but they're all kind of the same, right? They're all kind of cookie cutter, kind of the same temples, kind of the same this, kind of the same that. And I was a little disappointed in that because I want to see a lot more diversity with the ancients. And that's one of the things I was really excited to go like start uncovering, because they hype them up so much, saying that there's so much to discover and so many stories and hidden secrets with the ancients. And I just didn't really get that vibe. I didn't really see a lot of that. And I definitely didn't see any of the story tie-in back to the ancients, or just at least very, very little of it. And I want to know more about them. I want to know, where, like, how did they end up on Eternum? Like, what's their origin story? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, that is one of the most interesting things to me is the ancients and how they tie in, how they got there. It seems like a lot of these different civilizations obviously landed there the same way we did, on a boat and with some sort of like reason to explore the open seas or whatever. So, some of these people may have stumbled upon Eternum on accident. A lot of them may have had the same, type of drive, even, and you brought up something that could be pretty cool. Maybe Captain Thorpe is like this, like, being that has lived for like thousands of years and keeps like, pulling people into Eternum one by one through like this, to try to grow the corrupted forces. You know what I mean? Just pulling greedy people onto this island to continue to feed that corruption loop on Eternum to try to take over the power of Azoth. So that's a pretty cool thought. I think that could be, a very interesting story to kind of look into and dive into for the New World team. We should mention this, or I'll mention this. Most games or most AAA MMOs do kind of pull the story when they're doing all these testing events, like the beta and preview testing and everything like that, because they don't want to like give out the entire storyline like to everybody like before the actual game launches. So they could very well have a lot of things planned that they just kind of pulled out of the game to make sure that the story's not spoiled for everybody when the actual game launches. That could be a thing, and I think it's worth acknowledging at this point.
I'm glad you made that point, for sure, because I do think that that's an incredibly valid point. And I have seen them say on Twitter and elsewhere that they are working on lore and working on the story for sure, and that we'll get a lot of that on release. I have seen them make that statement, so hopefully they don't disappoint. And I'm really glad you said that, because you're absolutely right. They could have just pulled it all, because it would suck really to get into the preview event and know everything and then get on launch and then there'd be no surprises.
Yeah, you're just basically playing through the same story over and over again. And
yeah, exactly.
And I know that or would hope that we know that they're working on more content, obviously mid to late game stuff. So you would think that would include some sort of playthrough story or something like that kind of ties the player into the actual environment of Eternum. And, you mentioned, previous or ongoing expansions and content that they'll be adding into the game. Hopefully will also add more to that lore or backstory too. So, we wanted to just set and mention everything we do know and kind of the direction that we hope the game goes in, or hopefully they will take it in, because, the setting of Eternum and again the time frame in which New World is set in can really be interesting, and they can do a ton of stuff that's unique to New World because they're not set in like a high fantasy world where they basically have to start lore from scratch. They can use the actual history of the world and start tying that into Eternum and how all these different people got there or discovered the island. So it'll be cool to see what they do, or if they choose to use this historical things in the game's actual story.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, man. Anything else you can think about that you want to talk about? I know this is kind of a short episode, but we definitely
Yeah, I think I want to talk about Azoth a little bit, man, and how that plays into the story. So we know that Azoth runs underneath the ground of Eternum, right? Like we know that's a thing, but why? Why is Azoth in Eternum? Is it just this naturally occurring substance that just was there, or did the ancients like screw up some technology and now they made Azoth and now it's like an ancient made thing, and so now they're there trying to continue to protect it? Then how does that tie into the corruption? Right? Like I want to know how Azoth affects why it affects different people differently, and then how it affects people differently. Because they say in a lot of their developer stuff up to this point that it has a huge effect on everyone and everything that it comes in contact with. And some things are transformed into these awesome, powerful beings, and then other things are transformed into these hideous like creatures. And we see that some, but we don't really know why. Some things are transformed the way they are, and I want to know more about Azoth and the substance. I think that's kind of the primary driving force behind the entire story. That's why everybody goes there. So I want to know what it does. I don't know anything about it, and I want to know more.
Well, here's something interesting. I think the Azoth and the corruption are two different things. They're vying for control over or Azoth is like the natural power of Eternum, and the corruption's kind of the thing that's kind of taking over, or trying like the opposite of Azoth, I guess, so to say. So the corrupted forces seem to be coming in and trying to rid or take over the power of Eternum, and it's I feel like it's two different things. Do you feel like it's like Azoth is making good versus evil, or do you think that
I think Azoth is making the corrupted people? That's what I think, because whenever you watch the dude grab Isabella's amulet out of the statue, he grabs the amulet and then he turns into a corrupted person. So it seems like it would be that's what turned him into a corrupted person to begin with. So I think Azoth is what's causing the corruption to happen. It just causes some people, and then other people go there because Azoth turns them into like these incredibly powerful people, and so they want to go get it for like eternal life. That's why they're going there to get Azoth to begin with, is so they can have this power and this eternal life. But then some people, they go there and they get it, and instead of giving them eternal life and incredible power, it turns them into corrupted beings.
So do you think maybe it's like one of those things that kind of like sees through your true intention, maybe Azoth, and then like if your attention or your intention to gain Azoth is power and greed and everything like that, instead it like it's kind of like Temple of Doom or something like that sort of stuff, where like if you grab it and you're not true-hearted, or the purpose you're not seeking it is true, for like to help others, you're kind of looking for self-power, then it turns you into corrupted. But if you're, looking to maybe, preserve the power of the island, or help others with your power, maybe then you do get empowered by Azoth.
Yeah, exactly. Those are the things I want to know. Like, I want to know all of these pieces of the story, and we don't have any of that yet. So I hope that they play into that and lean into that and tell us what Azoth is, and they continue to unfold that story as time goes on, because I really that's an interesting aspect of the game and the story, and I really want to know what's happening there.
So last thing, what do you think about possibly eventually players being corrupted? So then the Azoth actually splits the player base. So then, you either become a good person that, has powers that are centered around like Azoth and healing and helping and everything like that. Or your player can become corrupted, and then you get all sort of different powers and skills, with the same weapons or abilities.
Yeah, and I thought initially whenever I watched that trailer a long time ago, I thought that that's kind of what was going to happen, is that some players would go find Azoth, and then for a short amount of time they could use it or whatever, or they come in contact with it or whatever, and then it would either turn them corrupted and they would have crazy abilities there, or maybe have some kind of debuffs or something, I don't know, and then other players would gain some kind of benefit from it, depending on, I don't know how that mechanic would work, but I thought that was something that was going to happen in the game, and that's not what happens. Azoth right now is just a substance you go get. You farm it from doing corrupted portals. You farm it from killing like mobs. Primarily, I was getting it primarily from like ancients. You kill them, you get it, and then you use it. You do use it in crafting and fast travel. So it's basically just a resource that you get that doesn't really have any effect on how powerful you are or whatever. And, you mentioned earlier that Azoth gives your player abilities. Well, I didn't see that tie into the story at all, right? Like I never once seen, I have like Azoth is what's giving me my ability. Azoth is what's making me this powerful warrior or whatever. Like Azoth is what's giving me these abilities to you. I never had that feeling at all. And so I don't know that if it's supposed to do that or not, or if it's just supposed to be a resource like we're using it for. But right now it's kind of boring in terms of Azoth connected to the story, because it doesn't do anything for your players. It's basically a crafting resource you use. And I kind of was hoping it was going to be more than that, So hopefully it will be at some point.
Yeah, dude. I just like, that was like an assumption. They definitely lead it to as an assumption to be made. They don't ever spell it out for you. Obviously, you have to use Azoth to respec.
Right.
And stuff like that. So then, it's definitely not well put up, portrayed that is what is giving your character the ability to use these abilities.
And maybe that's what they're going for. Maybe they're going for like lore is supposed to be this player-driven, uncovered type of thing. And if that's what they're going for, then I guess we just need to be guided more in that direction, I guess, So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, you make a good point, and maybe that's the truth, dude. Is maybe they don't want us to have a whole lot of story and questing and everything like that, because they want the players to kind of create and drive the world. But the direction that they've been heading in recently with development, you would almost think that there has to be some sort of game-driven story as well. So
right, I think before, whenever they had the first iteration of the game, I think that would have worked fine. I think now with it going more in the direction of PvE and more in the direction of almost a theme park type of MMO, I definitely think it needs some sort of story in there now versus just going out and finding it. I don't know that fits that style of game, right?
Right. I mean, yeah, I would almost guarantee that they're going to add some story-driven content to the game. So we'll see. Yeah. We'll see. I guess, and on the next preview event, if they've added anything more than there's already in the game. So that'll about do it, I think, for us. It was a good episode, dude. I enjoyed talking about the story. It's interesting to see. Or talk about maybe what they're going to do or what direction they're going to take the game in as far as story-wise. So as we know more, we'll talk about it here on the podcast. Guys, real quick, again, and I think we mentioned this at the top of the episode too, but don't forget to follow the Studio Loot Twitter account for any updates, like when we go live to record the podcast, when the podcast is published, et cetera, et cetera. Lots of information coming through there on all of our content at New World Fans, New World to Go. Also, guys, we have a YouTube for Studio Loot now, and that's where the VODs for the podcast go. So if you're one of those people that watch the VODs, and listen to the podcast or your all of that stuff, those are where the VODs are listed now. It's just Studio Loot over at YouTube. So search that up, and the VODs for all of our podcasts are found on that one YouTube channel. So go subscribe to that as well. Bordy, it's been fun, dude. Why don't you tell people where they can find you on the internet?
It has been fun, man. I enjoy talking about lore, man. Believe it or not, it's an interesting topic. So you can find me over at Twitter at the BDLG. YouTube is at the BDLG. I do have a lore video up over there, like Red had mentioned earlier about New World. It's in my New World playlist over there. And then you can find me on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/BDLG. And then, of course, creating content is StudioLoot.com, which houses NewWorldFans.com.
Yes, sir. And I'm Redbird with a Y. You can find me for that on that name on YouTube and Twitch. Twitter, I am Redbird. Guys, it's been fun. We enjoy having you guys. Thank you guys so much for the support. Don't forget to leave a 5-star rating on iTunes for us. It really helps us as far as attention and promotion goes over there. So definitely drop a 5-star rating. We really appreciate that. And thank you guys again for listening, and we'll see you on another episode of New World to Go.